Well, to diagnose. A fancy word to figure out what's wrong with it. There are several steps in the diagnosis. The first step is to correctly identify the vehicle. All of the steps are very important. One number and you can be so far off on the diagnosis. What am I talking about? The year model. Sometimes the year models are pretty close, but sometimes they're completely different. It is very important that you correctly identify the vehicle. In this particular case, we will be working with a 2002 Lexus. Not just any Lexus, it's an RX300, not an SC300, and not an LSXYZ. The next step, if possible, is to get some information from the customer. In this case, the customer said, well, we just got another vehicle, not new, and the heater doesn't work. So then the first question I asked was, well, did you give it enough time for the heater to work? Sometimes it takes several minutes in order for the heater to work. The engine has to be warm in order for the heater to work. The customer stated, yes, we gave it plenty of time. The next question I asked was, well, does it get warm at all? Customer states, no, it did not get warm at all. All of these are important bits of information that will lead me in the diagnosis. He stated that it does not work at all. Let me introduce to you the three workies. It works, leave it alone. It doesn't work. That means it's completely unfunctional. In this case, the heater does not blow any heat at all. Now let me introduce to you, it kind of works. You will be surprised to find out that plenty of times a system, an engine, a transmission, a heater, whatever it is, well, it kind of works. Well, what do I mean by that? In this particular case, the heater doesn't work at all. It is possible for a heater to kind of work. What do I mean by that? Well, it takes a long time for it to start working and it doesn't get hot enough. If the customer had stated that kind of information, I would immediately go to the coolant level. But in this particular case, the customer says it doesn't work at all. The next step is to perform a visual inspection. We're going to open up the hood. The most important tool in our next step is proper lighting. Any good technician will agree. Proper lighting is a necessary tool with inspection and repair. Some of you think you can see, but guaranteed you can see so much better if you have the proper lighting. When I was having demonstrations in the shop and a student did not use lighting, I'd call him out as being a half-ass. Don't be a half-ass. Well, we're going to investigate the heater hoses. Now, most of the time, the heater hoses are located over on this corner, but in this particular case, they're tucked up under there. There's two heater hoses. We're going to touch. What am I going to do? I'm going to find the two heater hoses. I'm going to warm the engine up. I'm going to squeeze the heater hoses and both of them should be warm. Now I'm going to start the engine and let it warm up a couple of minutes in order for the thermostat to open up and the water pump to circulate the coolant into the heater core. This is a simple test. When I did a visual inspection, I eliminated a possible heater control valve. This vehicle, like most, do not have a heater control valve, and sometimes a heater control valve is not working, and that can cause the heater not to work. Also, I eliminated a big possibility. It is common to bypass the heater. Why would they bypass the heater? Because the heater core is leaking. Well, why don't they just fix the heater core? Because it's a huge labor-intense repair. $1,000 to replace a heater core on the labor. So now it's time to go to the next step. Start the engine, let it warm up. The engine has been idling for 3 minutes. The temperature gauge on the cluster shows normal operating temperature. I'm going to perform a very simple test here. I'm going to squeeze both the heater hoses and both of them should be warm. The variation amongst vehicle is always the biggest obstacle. Some heater hoses are fairly easy to get to. This one is kind of medium hard, but I can still do it. I'm touching the heater hoses. I'm squeezing them. They're fairly warm. No, you're not going to get burned by squeezing the heater hose. Both hoses should feel nice and warm to hot. So yes, we have circulation of engine coolant to the core. If we didn't have this warm heater hoses, I'd stay underneath the hood and do some more testing as far as checking for a restricted heater core. Because both of the hoses are nice and warm, almost hot, there's not a problem. The heater system is a very simple system. We only need the two things to get heat out of the heater. We need heat to the core. That means hot engine coolant to the heater core, and we need a working temperature door. Those are the only two things we need. So now it's time to do some more research. I am amazed how wonderful YouTube has turned out in helping me diagnose other problems. One quick example, my ice maker. It was frosting up on the outside. I had no idea what was wrong. I went to the YouTube. I put in the model of the refrigerator and the problem, and just like that, it took me straight to the problem. So we're going to do the same thing. We're trying to figure out what's wrong with the heater on this vehicle. We've started some diagnosis, and now let me show you how to use YouTube to research the information. In the search box, type the vehicle that you are working with. 2002 Lexus RX 300. Space. Check out the offerings. I don't see anything related to the heater. Start to type heater. Heater. The offering is heater core replacement. No, we don't want that. Let's put something like does not work. There it is. Offerings are very helpful. Try to go with the offerings. So we go there, get past the ads, and here are the offerings. Heater problem on a 2000 Lexus RX 300. Now it's the right make, it's the right model, but the year model is off a little bit. Let's look at how long this video has been out. 5 years. It has 80,000 views. It's 9 minutes long. Let's take a look at that one. The video jumps right in. Looks like we're behind the glove box. Pay attention to everything. It looks very close to the same vehicle that we're working with. Now, I'm a fast forward kind of guy, and I'll just explain what's going on. Here are the two heater pipes. He's got part of the ventilation removed, sometimes called servo actuators. There's usually 3 of them in the dash. One of them is for the mode. Mode means defrost, vent, or floor, or a combination of those. Another one is called the blend door, sometimes called the air mix door, and it may even have a third name. These are electrical devices that are on the top of the list that cause a problem with the heating on the Lexus. There they are, these servo actuator devices. They're part of the ventilation system. I have a whole video on the ventilation system. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description. The video that I will show you shows you how to remove the servos. The servos can be easy, they can be medium, and they can be quite difficult to remove. They're saying that the servo is bad. Let's see if it works. Press the auto and recirculation at the same time and then turn the key on. When it all lights up, let it go. It should go into self-test and we should get some codes. Right here. 21, 31, 41. These are diagnostic trouble codes related to the air conditioning. Now you have to follow the steps in sequence. It doesn't work if you're out of sequence. What do I mean by that? Well, let's do it the wrong way. Why would I show you how to do it the wrong way? Because you'll see and understand, well, it doesn't work that way and you don't want to do it that way. The wrong way to do it is to turn the key on and then push those same buttons again. It does not go into self-test. And we were able to get this information from watching some of the YouTube channels. The YouTubes are so helpful if it's exactly your vehicle. It's time to put our eyeballs and our hands on the suspicious component. We're after the temperature servo. They say there's a couple of bolts here, 10 millimeter, comes out. Another one over here, comes out. Open it up. Couple more screws over here, number 2 Phillips. Let's take it out. That one was already loose. Over here, let's take the next one out. Well, giving us a little trouble. There it is. Take it out. Put the screws down here. Let's see if it gets a little bit loose. I don't see any more screws. Let's see if it snaps in. Yeah, felt the snap. Got another one. Looks like it's coming off. All right. So 2 Phillips here, a couple of 10 millimeter here. The snaps that went in. The glove box is out, and we're getting close. The only slightly tricky part were the snaps on the glove box. Using a nice, large, wide screwdriver will prevent damaging all the plastic pieces. This one went on the bottom and it came off. They say we'll need a short stubby, and they're right. We'll take this screw off here first. Looks like I got a straight shot, and you will need a stubby. Now the other 2 screws are slotted. That means all you have to do is just loosen them about 3 or 4 turns, and then this piece will come out. So far, it's looking exactly like the YouTube, which makes me very comfortable. We're about to remove part of this ductwork. We take that one off. We loosen this one about 2 or 3 turns. And it's better that you not take it off, because it makes it so much easier when it's time to put it back on. Okay, so let's see. Looks like I got to take them all the way off. Now I got to be careful not to drop that one. They can be a little tricky to find. I'll need to take this piece off, and it's got some little plastic clip. Using the large, wide screwdriver, and we can see the 2 actuators. Neither of them is working, so I'll start to let these guys loose. Here it is. This one's for the temperature. It's not working. I'll take it apart to make sure that's what's wrong with it. This one is called the mode. It's not working either. It's the one that controls the defrost vent and the floor. So it needs this one also. A stubby screwdriver is not going to do it. I had to go get one of these just so I could remove this bracket that holds these two heater lines. Once you took this off, you had to bend these quite a bit just to make room. This is not an easy repair. A couple of these screws were very difficult to get to. This one had 3. This one had 2 screws, and I'll put both of them back. We're going to have to take these apart to make sure that's what's wrong with it. It's possible that the control head is causing the problem, but I'm pretty sure this is it. And the reason I say that is because the control head, as I push the different modes, it does change on the indicator. So that's a good sign. That and most of the YouTube videos are blaming this servo actuator. Here it is. There's no obvious damage to it. That's what the challenging part is about electrical. It doesn't look bad. It's not like a brake shoe or an oil leak. You can't tell that it's bad. Now, it's not working, so I feel comfortable enough taking it apart. But I'm going to be careful just in case I can repair it. A new one at the auto parts cost about $150, and I need 2 of them. On Amazon, I can get them for about $50, but you always take a chance of it not being exactly the right one, or the quality may not be as good. Now there's some latches on here, and you use a small screwdriver, and you start to take this apart. You work the latches. There's about 5 of them, 1 on each side and then a couple over here on this side. It's okay to start putting the screwdriver in there and working it apart. This one looks like it's coming apart. Maybe 1 more latch over here on this side. There. And we have the cover off. Almost all of these servo actuators come apart this way. They're somewhat friendly on this part. Now let's see if I can get this one completely apart. There. All right. Now I go ahead and separate it, and I'm being careful to see how everything goes. Here is the inside of the servo actuator. This round thing here, well, that's the little motor that's going to work the gears. It's okay for you to go ahead and do a visual inspection. Now, the gears can break, the shaft can break, the motor can give out, the contacts can get bad. This particular one does not have a circuit board. It seems to be simple enough. On this side, I have a gear, but I also have what looks like a variable resistor setup. What we have here is a motor and a sensor. Now I don't see anything wrong, and it's okay to do some testing. Now I'm going to take 12-volt booster pack with a couple of jumper wires, and I've attached some needles in there because I will have to get into a tight area. The first thing I'm going to do is go directly to the motor. There's only 2 terminals on the motor. If you're careful, you can see them. I take my 2 jumper wires that are connected to the booster pack. I connect to one side of it. Now you have to be careful not to touch anything metal. Like in this particular case, I'm going to be real careful. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to connect this one. And there. It was a little bit out of place. The motor is working. The gears are working. Notice the direction of rotation on this middle gear. It's going clockwise. Now these motors are reversing. You have to be careful for these not to touch, because you'll get a little jumpy when they spark. I'm going to reverse the connection. You should see the gear going in the opposite direction. Now it's going counterclockwise. So the motor is good. What I did is I went ahead, and since the motor is good, they come out real easy. The motor comes out, but I would pay attention to make sure it goes back in the same direction to make sure crossing of the polarity. The motor comes out, I put it in here, and I'm looking at the contacts where it slides in there. There's some contacts in here, and I'm going to just give them a squeeze. Now, if the motor was no good, I'd give up. If the gears were broken, I'd already go ahead and give up. Because no, they don't sell the little pieces as far as I know. Now, what I'm going to try to do on this one and the other one is I'm going to clean and tighten the connections. Now, on this one here, I'm going to squeeze the connector. I'm going to squeeze it so it makes it nice and firm. I do that. On this one, this connector slides on this contact ring. And this ring has grease on it, and it's the special grease that's intended for electrical, but I'm going to use some electrical contact cleaner. I'm going to spray some on the paper towel, because I sure don't want that much. I spray some contact cleaner, and then I clean the contacts. All it takes is one bad contact, and it doesn't work. So I come in here, and I gently clean the contacts. And I also bend the contacts up so they'll make a firm contact on this ring. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the ring. And if I look at it carefully, I can tell, well, this is where it normally rides, because this one is still full of that grease to protect it. Now I'm going to clean. You can see it is dirty. I'm going to clean the ring where the contacts ride. Right here. Now I'm not going to clean the whole thing because I want some of that grease. I don't have any to replace it. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to clean this up. Now after it's clean, I can take some of this extra grease and spread it in there, so it'll make it last longer. It's supposed to have that special grease to go in there. Now I go ahead, and after I tightened up the connections, I'm going to put the motor back in. Always just being careful that everything goes together correctly. So I put the motor in. Now I can check it at this point. Now I have, I think, 6, 7 connections here. And you have to know what you're doing when you're using the jumper wires to actuate the different devices. The wiring diagram made me feel very comfortable. I'll show you here in a few minutes how you can use a wiring diagram to help you decide which terminals you're going to jump. Now earlier, I just kept it simple, and I took the 2 jumper wires and I went straight to the motor. Right here, I make the contact, and over here, I make the contact. And yes, you can see the little gears moving. Now, the wiring diagram explains it all. So here, it says terminal 6 and 7. Now, unfortunately, they're not marked, but here's how I was able to decide which ones I'm going to do. I can look inside. You're allowed to look. Your eyes are a wonderful tool that can be used for diagnosing and repair. Take full advantage of them. And yes, I feel comfortable. What I'm doing is I'm going to make sure that the contact between here and here are good. Now I come in here and I'm being careful not to touch anything except what I need to touch. And I come in here and I touch that one and I touch this one. And sure enough, you can see the gears rotating. Now, if I reverse it, that means switch the connections, it should go in the opposite, and it does. This actuator, servo, motor, whatever you want to call it, looks like it might work. Why wasn't it working on the vehicle? Well, it was probably a contact. All it takes is one bad contact and it doesn't work. Now I'm going to go ahead and I think it's ready. Oh, that's right. This has to go in a certain place. And if you study it, you can tell, well, this is where it used to ride. So I'm going to make sure that I put it back to where it used to ride. Now it looks like it should go about like this. I line it up and it snaps in. Now let's go ahead. I think I can give it one more test. It should still work, but it's really touchy. You have to be so careful when you're coming in here. Now I'm going to use my lighting to help me so I can see where I need to be. Again, you cannot let these touch because it will spark and then you'll get all jumpy. But let's see if I can make this move when I still have it connected. Yes, there. It looks like it works. Let's go on to the next step. I'm not going to completely install it unless I know it has a chance. I've plugged it in. I'm going to turn the key on. I'm going to work the temperature from hot to cold, and I got my fingers crossed that it works. I turn the temperature a little bit and it works a little bit. There is in one direction, there is in the other direction. It's looking very hopeful. I'm able to test it to make sure it's going to work. I'm a happy camper. But it is rewarding to see it work. Which way? There. Here's the other one. Let's see if it works. Yes. That's the mode. Vent, defrost, floor. It's working. Thank you so much for the view. I know it was kind of long, but there was a lot of information to cover. If you like this video, it's important that you give us the thumbs up. It's also important that you hit the notice bell so you will be notified. All of these actions on your part help to motivate us to keep putting these videos out. I understand you have to subscribe, hit the notice bell, hit that like button for us. Ask me questions. I'm eager to answer all your questions. Leave a comment. Thank you again for your support.